And Luke turned the effing lights on. Well, he finally turns the lights on, and two other people, Sandy was one of them, two other people saw that. So I know it wasn't just me. And I thought, this is great. The first place I go to after 2 years, and I got to start dealing with this again, which is what I did. We get scared too. When we're done with a tour or something like that, you guys leave. I can speak for myself. I want to go with you. But we got to turn out lights and lock doors, and other people here that do these things, like Lisa over here. And yeah, we want to go with you. Sometimes we stick around, but I tell you, we don't stay for long. I know I don't. So I'll punt the ball over to that guy.
So one of my other favorite stories, there was a tour that Len was doing, and I was caboosing that night for him, helping him out. And when I'm doing the tours, whenever we would go inside the church, there's a baby grand piano. So that would start the special effects portion of my show. I'd sit down at the piano and start playing the Halloween theme song and the Munsters theme and the Addams Family, and I'd play the Exorcist theme even though we were in a church, but I played it anyway. It was a fun thing.
I introduced him as Barry Mel.
Yeah. You guys would laugh and just kind of get a kick out as you were sitting down. Well, since that was Len's tour, I didn't want to do that for him. And so he came up to me and he said, hey, he goes, I gotta go to the bathroom, it's gonna be a few minutes, go ahead and entertain him. So I knew it'd be a while, so I sat down and started playing the piano. When I finished playing the piano, closed the lid, pulled the cover back over it, pushed the bench in, and then I sat down at the altar steps. About 2 or 3 minutes pass, and all of a sudden you hear about 5 or 6 notes get hit on that piano. Now we had 40 people on the tour that night. You see everybody's head all turn and look at the piano to see who's playing it, but nobody's sitting there. Crazy Steve had his video camera running that night. He actually captured the audio of the piano. You hear it play, you see everybody's head turn, you hear me say, did you all hear that? Everybody's saying yes. The bad thing is his camera is in this corner, aiming at this corner, and the piano is in this corner. So on the video, I always tell people, even though when the coolest things happen and you have everything going to get captured on video, something always goes wrong. And with that moment, you hear the audio, you hear the piano, you hear me talk about it, but you do not see that nobody is actually sitting at the piano. So when you show the video to the skeptics, their first thought was somebody was sitting there, they were playing it, because we don't see that nobody was. So the piano was played several times, I know, for us in that church.
It happened to me. I was doing a spring tour, and I had about 20 people on the tour, and we were down in the basement of the church, and all of a sudden the piano up in the sanctuary plays, and everybody's freaking, except me. I start laughing. They go, what the hell's so funny? I go, that was about 10 or 12 notes. They're learning the song.
One of my other favorite stories in the basement, I was hosting an overnight investigation, and there was a young couple there, a girl guy and the girl's mom and dad. And we're down in the basement. The only lights that were on were caused by somebody had a laser grid set up. So that was the only lights. The young couple was standing next to the set of stairs that lead to nothing now. I was standing at the other end of the basement talking to the mom and dad. And as we're talking, all of a sudden you see the girl, she yells at her boyfriend to quit pulling my hair. She rears her arm back and smacks him as hard as she can. And then she comes storming over to us. And I said, hey, he didn't pull your hair. And she said, no, he did it like 3 times. And I said, no, his hands were in his pocket the entire time. And she didn't believe me. But I told her, I said, I'll tell you what, I said, that's my video camera right there. I said, it's aiming right at the stairs. I said, let's watch the footage. So we rewound the footage, watched the entire thing, of the entire time that they were standing there. You never saw his hands leave his pocket once. And then she smacked the hell out of him. And the thing is even though I'm showing her the video that he did not touch her hair, she still said he was the one who did it. And then she stormed upstairs. About 15 minutes later, the dad came back downstairs and said, hey, we're going to go ahead and call it a night. And you sure? He goes, yeah. He goes, it's finally hitting her that what had happened. She finally realizes that it wasn't her boyfriend and that it was something else. So what's funny is sometimes we get people to come on these investigations to find the ghost, and then when they do, it's just too much for them to handle. So here they had this perfect opportunity, experiencing something, and it was just too much for her.
I love the people that come on a tour. I want to see a ghost. I want to see a ghost. You're the last one. And then I think, do you really? Do you really? We've seen things that would curl your toes over the years, and you have to tell, I can't remember today, curling your toes.
When I went today, this is a side note, when I went to pick up Len today, his wife Kim, she came out and opened the garage for us, and me and my buddy Scott were standing out there, and she said, "You guys are early?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, he's running around the house like crazy naked right now." Okay. And she said, "You guys want to come in?" I'm like, "Hell no, we don't want to come in." You try to say it like that when you want us to come in. I've seen things. There's no way. So,
Kim yells, "They're here." I just had gotten out of the shower, dried off, and I had to shave. Hadn't shaved in 3 or 4 days. So she goes, "They're here," and I got shaved. I'm naked, but shaving cream all over my face. I looked like I had rabies, kind of thing. And I thought, well, let them wait. So, but she went out on her own.
and most likely that was going to be the scariest thing this weekend.
They said that.
And I turned it down.
I guarantee if Luke had walked in the house, he wouldn't be here. He'd still be in the hospital. Why? Kind of. Anyway, I mentioned, do you really want to see a ghost? I don't even know which Luke was leading an investigation in the church, and Crazy Steve and I, we had done the walking tour, and we thought, well, let's go to the church and just hang around for a little bit. So we're standing in the back of the church. If you look at the church from the outside, it has the big round stained glass window in the front. Well, it has one of those in the back over the altar. So Steve and I are in the back of the church. You just walk in, there you are in the back of the church, and we're talking. And I don't know, this happens a lot to people. You're looking at each other, you're talking, and you both stop at the same time and turn and look in the same direction. Well, that happened to Steve and I. We're in the back, we're talking, we both stopped and turned and looked up at that stained glass window over the altar. Watched a man crawl out of that effing window. A full, solid, three-dimensional shadow person. No facial features, but solid. Crawl out of that window, crawl down the wall, and then up under the doorway into the back room. Now, when I talk about this on a tour, I go, I guarantee every one of you here, if you would have seen that, you would have sharted your pants and run out screaming. But Steve and I have been doing this for almost 25 years, so we don't, be there. So we're still staring at the wall now, and I just leaned over to Steve and I said, you want to go get that one? He goes, F no. And I said, neither do I, but let's go. And of course, we go in the back and nothing's there. Some of that stuff is so dramatic that your eyes see it, but your brain doesn't want to accept it. You really have to, what the heck did I just see? Which is absolutely crazy.
There was another investigation it was a tour where we went down into the basement, and much like Len said earlier, I do shut all the lights off. I think it adds to the effect. I always tell people, I'll have the lights off, but I have a flashlight on or a lantern on, and I'll tell everybody, all right, I said, everybody take a look at how big the circle is, because I'll be in the center of the circle, everybody will be making a circle around me, and I would say, take a look at how big the circle is, and everybody's looking around, and I said, because in about 5 minutes, it's going to get a whole lot smaller. And then I turn the lights out. And by the time I turn the lights back on, after the stories are over, everybody is touching each other from all sides. It's a huge glob of people, because what happens is when you're standing there, you always get the feeling that somebody's behind you. And you start inching further away from it, trying to get away from it, and it keeps catching up to you. So the circles always get really small. So I was doing this tour, I was telling the stories, and all of a sudden, from behind me, I started hearing all the screaming. And even though the lights are out, you knew that everybody was coming our way. And I remember turning around, and I had people pushing into me. I had my arms out side to side, trying to hold people up, because they're all pushing to get away from something and about falling over on top of each other. After a minute of the screaming and everybody being really worked up, I'm like, calm down, calm down. I turned my light on, I said, what in the world just happened? And at the same time, several people started talking how they heard something growling. Now, my first thought was, I said, everybody be honest with me. I said, did somebody's stomach growl? Because, that happens all the time when you're on these investigations and these tours, you're hungry. These things can sound like demons whenever your stomach starts growling. Yeah. This guy always... Yeah. If you ever want to catch a gassy cloud, just be behind him on a tour. On my tour, I call my helpers cabooses. On his tours, they're called fart catchers. So,
I've been sick.
So Anyway, so everybody's talking about this growling noise, and I made sure that nobody's stomach growled or anything like that. Everybody, hopefully they were being honest. But they all said the growl came up from up high. So it wasn't where somebody's stomach would be. Two of the girls who were screaming the most, they said whenever they heard the growling, they also felt some little pats on the backside, which really worked them up. Once everybody kind of calmed down, they were all actually pretty excited to have experienced something like that, but we also had to go ahead and call it a night because everybody was just too worked up about it. So we decided to go outside and told everybody I'll finish some of the stories outside if they wanted to hear more, but that was, I think, the end for most of the people that were there that night.
Hey, look, I got magical powers.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry about that. Now you know why I quit playing softball. Anybody does a tour, especially the live tour, you think the people that come on the tour think they know what's going to happen, or think you're in charge, and that you know what's going to happen. It doesn't always work that way. I'm the only tour guide here that can tell this story. I had a private tour of 45 people. So when Tony's restaurant was still at the old location there. And we were going to look at some ghostly locations, go have dinner, and look at some more ghostly locations. So we get down to the alley next to the old YMCA, that we go down next to that, go down and tell the August Mayford story. Everybody showed up early. So I thought, well, they're here, let's start the tour. So by the time we hit that alley, I realized I'm going to get to Tony's 30 minutes too soon. And you can't just bring 45 people in, because they're not setting up for us till like 5 minutes before we're supposed to be there, maybe 10. So I thought, what am I going to do? It's now dusk, it's getting pretty dark, and I thought, I'll take them down this alley. It's dark, it's scary, they'll love it. So I took 45 people down the darkened alley and walked them right into a drug center.